Hey there, travelers. Before we dive into today's story, drop a comment below telling us where you're tuning in from. Now let's begin our journey into the unknown. I've sat across from 17 of them in the last 3 years, documenting their hierarchies, their motivations, their endgames for a classified government project. I've watched them wear human faces. I've heard them speak in languages that make your teeth ache and your vision blur. But none of them scared me like Azin. Not because he threatened me. Not because he screamed or raged or promised damnation. Because he smiled at me like he already knew how this would end. I know how that sounds. Believe me, I do. But here's the thing. When the government knocked on my door 2 weeks after I buried my 9-year-old daughter, they didn't ask if I believed in the supernatural. They asked if I was willing to document it. They said they needed someone with my background, clinical psychology, forensic experience, a mind trained to stay calm when everything inside you is screaming. They said they needed someone who had already lost everything. They were right. The smell hit me first that Tuesday morning in October. Even before I entered the containment wing at Fort Detrick, Maryland. It seeped through the ventilation system, crawled down the fluorescent-lit corridors like something alive. Not sulfur like the old books say. Sweeter. Rotting flowers mixed with copper, and underneath it all, something else. Something that made your stomach turn and your mouth water simultaneously. The kind of smell that whispers, "This doesn't belong here." My footsteps echoed against linoleum floors as I carried my leather briefcase and a recorder that cost more than my car. Somewhere in the distance, something was screaming. Not human. Never human down here. "He's been quiet this morning," Agent Laura Peachy said, walking beside me. She was 34, former FBI, now part of whatever alphabet soup organization actually ran Protocol Salem. Her dark hair was pulled back tight, her expression unreadable behind government-issue glasses. "Hasn't spoken since we transferred him from Detroit 3 days ago." "They always get quiet before they talk," I said, adjusting my tie. It was blue. Eliza used to say it made my eyes look less tired. I still wore it every Tuesday. "What's his containment status?" "Level 4, sigil-reinforced cell, holy water in the ventilation system, 3 priests on rotating prayer duty." Laura glanced at her tablet. "Standard precautions, though nothing about this one feels standard." We stopped at a reinforced steel door marked with symbols I'd learned to recognize but never learned to pronounce. Through the small window, I could see the interview room. Concrete walls covered in protective markings, a single table bolted to the floor, 2 chairs facing each other. One was empty, the other wasn't. "His name is Azin," Laura said quietly. "At least, that's what he told the capture team before he let them bind him. He didn't fight. Isaac, he just smiled and walked into the circle." That made my skin crawl more than anything else she could have said. "How many casualties during the ritual interruption?" I asked. "None. That's what worries me." I looked through the window again. The thing in the chair looked human. Painfully so. Mid-40s maybe. Salt and pepper hair, clean-shaven, wearing the gray jumpsuit we provided for entities that manifested physical forms. He sat perfectly still, hands folded on the table, staring at nothing. But his eyes. Even through the reinforced glass, I could see his eyes. They were wrong. Not glowing red or black voids like you'd expect. They were hazel, normal, human, except they held an intelligence that felt older than mountains. Older than memory. "I'll be watching the entire time," Laura said, her hand on my shoulder. "One word, one sign you're in distress, and we flood that room with everything we've got." "He won't hurt me," I said, surprised by the certainty in my voice. "How do you know?" "Because he wants something. They always want something." I pushed open the door. The smell hit me immediately. That sickeningly sweet rot that made my eyes water. But underneath it, something else. Old books, burning candles, the inside of a church I hadn't been to since Eliza's funeral. Azin didn't move as I entered. Didn't even blink. I crossed the room, set my briefcase on the table, and sat down across from him. The metal chair was cold even through my slacks. "My name is Dr. Isaac Dern," I began, keeping my voice level. "Professional." like this was just another interview. I'm here to ask you some questions about your nature, your origins, and your intentions. You are not obligated to answer, but cooperation will be noted in your daughter's name was Eliza, Azin said. His voice was gentle, warm even. Like a professor I'd once respected. Like a father. My hands clenched into fists beneath the table. She died 2 years ago, he continued, tilting his head slightly. September 14th, 3:47 in the afternoon. The pickup truck ran a red light on Riverside Drive. The driver was texting. She never saw it coming. That information is not relevant to this interview, I said, but my voice cracked halfway through. Isn't it? Azin leaned forward, and for the first time, he smiled. It was a kind smile, understanding. You want to know what I am, Dr. Dern, but you can't understand what I am until you understand what you are. A man in pain, a father with a hole in his chest that will never heal, a human being desperately trying to make sense of a world that doesn't make sense. I opened my briefcase with shaking hands, pulled out my recorder, and placed it on the table. The red light blinked on. For the record, I said slowly, please state your designation and origin. Azin watched the recorder for a moment, then looked back at me with those ancient, terrible eyes. I am Azin. I have worn 1,000 names across 10,000 years. I am what your kind calls a demon, though that word is insufficient. I am older than your Christ, older than your Buddha, older than the first human who looked up at the stars and wondered if something was looking back. And what is your purpose? Purpose? He laughed, a genuine sound that made my skin crawl. I observe, Dr. Dern. I witness. I participate when invited. I have watched your species build civilizations and burn them down. I have seen empires rise and fall like waves on a shore. I was there when the Black Death swept through Europe, watching mothers abandon their children in the streets. I was in Spain when the Inquisition decided that salvation required fire and screams. He paused, his expression thoughtful. I was in the trenches of World War I and the camps of World War II. Though in those wars, I confess, I mostly let the vampires play. They enjoy that sort of chaos more than I do. The casual mention of vampires should have surprised me. It didn't. Not anymore. Not after 3 years of this. You claim to have witnessed these events, I said, finding my rhythm again. The familiar back and forth of interview protocol. Were you their cause? Oh, Dr. Dern. Azin leaned back, spreading his hands. That's the question everyone asks, isn't it? Did the devil make them do it? No, I didn't make the plague. I didn't order the executions. I didn't pull any triggers or release any gas. Your kind did that all by yourselves. Then what did you do? I whispered, he said simply. I suggested. I reminded people of what they already wanted to do. The monk who secretly hated his abbot. The soldier who enjoyed killing a little too much. The mother who looked at her screaming infant and wondered just for a moment what silence would sound like. I didn't create those thoughts, Doctor. They were already there. I just gave permission. My throat felt dry. I reached for the water bottle I'd brought, took a sip. It tasted like metal. You're describing manipulation, I said. Psychological warfare. I'm describing honesty. Azin's eyes never left mine. Your species builds elaborate structures to hide from yourselves. Laws, morals, religions, beautiful lies you tell to pretend you're not animals with delusions of divinity. I simply remove the pretense. And you consider that noble? I consider it necessary. He folded his hands again, mirroring my posture with unnerving precision. Tell me, Dr. Dern, have you ever met someone who genuinely defeated one of us? Not through prayer or holy water or scribbled symbols, but through pure force of will? I hesitated. Your file indicates multiple exorcism attempts, some successful. Successful, he repeated, tasting the word. Yes, I suppose you could call them that. Let me tell you about 3 humans who impressed me. He settled back into his chair, and his voice took on the quality of a storyteller. Someone who had lived through what he was about to describe. The first was a Roman soldier named Cassius, Jerusalem, 37 years after your Messiah's execution. I had possessed a merchant's daughter, nothing dramatic, just encouraged her existing impulses toward theft and violence. Cassius confronted me in the marketplace. He was 43, scarred from 3 campaigns, and he had just lost his wife to fever. I offered him power, offered to bring her back. He looked at me with these exhausted eyes and said, "I've seen what power does. I'll take grief instead." Azrin's expression softened with something that might have been respect. He performed the ritual himself, drove me out through sheer refusal to accept my offer. I didn't hate him for it. How could I? He understood the price and chose to pay it anyway. The second, I heard myself ask. A priest in Paris, 1342, Father Antoine. I had been whispering to him for months, encouraging his doubts, his secret atheism, his attraction to a married woman in his congregation. The plague was coming. I could feel it on the wind. I told him he could save himself, save her, if he just abandoned his vows, abandoned his God. What did he do? He prayed for 17 days straight without sleep, nearly killed himself doing it. On the 18th day, he looked at me and said, "If my God is silent, then my faith will speak for him." The exorcism that followed nearly destroyed us both. But he won. Azrin paused. He died 3 months later. The plague took him and the woman he loved. But he died believing. I still don't understand why that mattered to him. The room felt colder. I could hear my own heartbeat in the silence. And the third? Salem, Massachusetts, 1692. His smile faded. A woman named Donna. She wasn't accused during the trials. She was too old, too poor, too invisible. But I saw her. I knew what she carried inside. Rage at a husband who beat her. Hatred for a town that ignored her. I offered her revenge, offered to help her burn it all down. She refused. She accepted, Azrin said quietly. For 6 weeks she let me in. Together we planned. We schemed. We prepared to make Salem destroy itself from within. And then, on the night we were going to begin, she walked into her kitchen, sat down at her table, and simply stopped me. Said, "I've carried you long enough. Get out." He looked down at his hands. No ritual, no prayer. She just decided she was done. And I couldn't hold on. Her will was stronger than my grip. I've wondered about her ever since. What gave her that strength at that particular moment? I found myself leaning forward, caught in the narrative despite myself. "You speak about these people with respect," I observed, "not hatred. Why would I hate them?" Azrin met my eyes again. They showed me what humanity is capable of when pushed to its absolute limit. They proved that your kind isn't helpless before us. That's not something to hate. That's something to admire, even if I don't understand it. Then why continue? Because for every Cassius, every Father Antoine, every Donna, there are 10,000 who accept my offers, 100,000 who never even need to be asked. They simply do what they were always going to do. And that, Dr. Dern, is what you need to understand. He leaned forward now, close enough that I could see myself reflected in those ancient eyes. You think you're different from them? You think your education, your credentials, your rational mind makes you immune? I've been watching you for 3 years, Doctor. Since the day you got that phone call at work. Since the moment you heard your wife screaming through the phone. Since you saw your daughter's body in that hospital corridor. My breath caught. I know about the nights you can't sleep. The bottle of sleeping pills you keep in your bathroom cabinet. 47 of them. Counted and recounted. I know about the mornings you sit in your car for 20 minutes before you can convince yourself to go inside and do this job. I know about the rage you hide so well. The anger at God, at the universe, at that driver who destroyed your life because he couldn't wait 30 seconds to send a message. "Stop," I whispered. "I know what you dream about, Isaac." His voice was gentle, terrifying. "I know that in those dreams you find him, the driver, and you hurt him, and it feels good, and you wake up hating yourself for enjoying it, even in sleep." Tears burned in my eyes. I couldn't speak. Azin sat back, giving me space, giving me air. "You want to understand what I am?" he said softly. "Then first understand what you are. A man balancing on a razor's edge between civilization and chaos. Between the person you pretend to be and the person you're terrified you actually are." He spread his hands on the table, palms up, palms, an offering. "I can help with that balance if you'd like. Help you stop pretending. Help you accept what you really want. Your soul. I don't need it, Isaac. I never did. Souls are just you, your choices, your nature. I don't take them, I just help you acknowledge them." The room spun. I gripped the edge of the table. "This interview is over," I managed to say. "Is it?" Azin smiled again. "Or is it just beginning?" I stood on shaking legs, grabbed my briefcase, left the recorder running on the table, turned toward the door. My hand was on the handle when he spoke again. "Before you go, Dr. Dern, answer me one question. Just one." I didn't turn around. "Do you think you're free?" he asked. "Do you honestly believe that the choices you make are your own? Or are you just following patterns written into you by genetics, by trauma, by a universe that doesn't care whether you exist or not? When you chose to take this job, was that really your decision? Or did you simply do what a broken man was always going to do?" I yanked the door open and walked out without answering. But his laughter followed me down the corridor. Not mocking, not cruel, understanding. Laura was waiting outside, her face pale. "Isaac? Are you—" "I'm fine," I lied. "That was only 20 minutes. Do you want to continue tomorrow?" I looked back at the door. Through the window, I could see Azin sitting exactly as before, hands folded, staring at nothing, waiting. "Yes," I heard myself say. "Tomorrow, same time." Because he was right about one thing. This was just beginning, and I needed to know how it ended, even if the answer destroyed me. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Azin's face, that patient smile, those ancient eyes watching me like I was a specimen under glass. And worse, I heard Eliza's voice, the words he'd whispered to me. Words that shouldn't have left that crumpled car on Riverside Drive. "Daddy, I can't feel my legs." Simple. Terrified. The last thing my daughter ever said before the internal bleeding took her. How did he know? I sat at my kitchen table until dawn, staring at the recorder I'd retrieved from the interview room. Laura had offered to have it transcribed, but I'd refused. Some conversations you need to hear again yourself. Need to understand what you missed the first time. I pressed play. Static. Then his voice, clear as a bell. "Your daughter's name was Eliza." I stopped the recording, started it again, stopped it. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the device. The sleeping pills in my bathroom cabinet whispered to me. 47 of them, just like he'd said. Just enough. Instead, I made coffee and watched the sun rise over Arlington. When Tuesday came again, I put on my blue tie and drove back to Fort Detrick. Laura was waiting in the observation corridor, 2 cups of coffee in her hands. She looked like she'd slept about as well as I had. "You don't have to do this," she said, handing me a cup. "We can assign someone else. Timoth from the Seattle office has experience with—" "No." I took the coffee. It was cold. "He asked for me specifically. That's what worries me. Isaac." Laura glanced at the reinforced door. "In 3 days, he hasn't spoken to anyone else. Hasn't eaten. Hasn't moved except to use the facilities. But the moment you left yesterday, he started humming." My skin crawled. "Humming what?" "We don't know. Nothing we could identify, but the priests heard it. Said it sounded like a lullaby." I thought about Eliza. The song I used to sing to her before bed. "You are my sunshine." Simple, sweet. He couldn't possibly know that too. "I'm going in," I said. Laura caught my arm. "Isaac, if he compromises you, if I see any indication you're not in control, I will flood that room. Do you understand?" I met her eyes, saw genuine concern there, maybe even fear. I understand. The door opened with a pneumatic hiss. Azin sat exactly where I'd left him. Same position, same patient expression. But when I entered, his eyes tracked me with predatory focus. Not threatening, curious. "Good morning, Dr. Dern," he said pleasantly. "I wondered if you'd return." "You knew I would." I set my briefcase down, pulled out a fresh recorder. My hands were steadier today. Calmer. Like I'd passed some threshold during the sleepless night and come out the other side. "That's why you told me about Eliza. You wanted to see if knowledge would drive me away or pull me closer. And which did it do?" "I'm here, aren't I?" Azin smiled. "Yes. Yes, you are. Curiosity is such a beautifully human trait. It's killed more of your kind than I ever have." I sat down, pressed record. "Yesterday you mentioned 3 people who defeated you through force of will. Cassius, Father Antoine, Donna. You spoke about them with respect." "I did. Why? If they thwarted you, humiliated you, drove you out, why not hatred?" Azin leaned back, considering the question. "Tell me, Doctor, if you were playing chess against a master opponent, and they executed a brilliant move you didn't anticipate, would you hate them for it? That's not the same thing, isn't it?" He tilted his head. "I am old, Isaac. Older than your written language. Older than your civilizations. I have witnessed humanity's entire crawl from caves to cities, from stone tools to splitting atoms. And in all that time, the most interesting moments, the only moments that matter, are when one of you surprises me. You're describing us like we're entertainment. No, I'm describing you like you're worthy opponents in a game that's lasted 10,000 years." He leaned forward. "Do you know how rare that is? How precious? Most species I've encountered are predictable, boring. They follow patterns, repeat cycles, never deviate. But humans? You're gloriously chaotic, beautifully contradictory. You build hospitals and concentration camps. You compose symphonies and commit genocides. You're capable of breathtaking kindness and unimaginable cruelty, often by the same person in the same day." His eyes gleamed. "That's why I don't hate those who resist me. They're proof that your species is still evolving, still capable of surprise." I wrote notes I didn't need, buying time to process. "You said you were in Jerusalem, Paris, Salem. Where else?" "Everywhere that mattered." Azin settled into storyteller mode again, his voice taking on that hypnotic quality. "I was in Rome when Nero blamed Christians for the fire. Didn't start the fire, mind you. A baker's carelessness did that. But I whispered in the emperor's ear about scapegoats and political convenience. I watched him feed your martyrs to lions and wondered why they sang hymns as they died. You were testing them. I was trying to understand them. Why choose death over denial? What makes faith stronger than survival instinct?" He paused. "I still don't have a satisfactory answer." "Where else?" "London, during the plague. Philadelphia during the yellow fever outbreak. New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina. I'm drawn to disasters, Doctor. Not because I cause them. Nature does that beautifully on its own. But because catastrophe strips away your pretenses, shows me what you really are when the rules stop applying." I thought about my own catastrophe, that phone call at work, the drive to the hospital that felt like drowning, the moment I saw the sheet covering her small body. "And what did you learn?" I asked quietly. "That some of you break, some of you bend, and some of you," he smiled, "some of you surprise me." "Like Donna?" "Ah, yes. Let me tell you more about Donna." Azrin's expression shifted, became almost wistful. "Salem, 1692. The trials were a feeding frenzy for my kind. Humans accusing each other, destroying their own community with paranoia and righteousness. We barely needed to do anything, just watch. But you targeted her specifically." "I did. She was 63, widowed. Her children grown and gone. She'd spent 40 years married to a man who beat her when he drank, which was often. The town ignored her suffering, told her marriage was sacred, that a wife's duty was submission. By the time I found her, she was a reservoir of pure, concentrated rage." Azrin's voice grew soft. I offered her everything she'd been denied. Power over those who'd ignored her. Revenge against the righteous hypocrites who told her to endure. I promised her I could make Salem burn, not with fire, but with truth. I would help her expose every secret sin, every hidden crime, until the town tore itself apart. And she agreed. For 6 weeks she was magnificent. We worked in perfect synchronization. She would whisper accusations, plant evidence, suggest doubts. I would amplify the paranoia, feed the hysteria. We were going to orchestrate the greatest act of communal self-destruction in colonial history. He looked at his hands. Then, on the night we planned to begin the final phase, she stopped. Just stopped. We were in her kitchen. Tiny place, barely 4 rooms. She'd been preparing poison to add to the communion wine. And she set down the bottle, looked at me, saw me for what I was, and said, "I've carried you long enough. Get out." What changed? I've spent centuries wondering that. Azin met my eyes. I think she realized that destroying Salem wouldn't ease her pain. It would just spread it, make others feel what she'd felt. And somewhere in that realization, she found the strength to choose differently. You admire that. I'm fascinated by it. She had every justification for revenge, every reason to burn it all down. But she chose mercy instead. Not forgiveness, she never forgave them. Just mercy. The decision to carry her pain rather than distribute it. The room felt colder. I wrapped my arms around myself. "You're trying to tell me something," I said. "These stories, Cassius choosing grief over power, Father Antoine choosing faith over survival, Donna choosing mercy over revenge. You're building to a point. Am I?" Azin smiled. "Or am I simply answering your questions? You don't do anything simple." "True." He leaned forward again, close enough that I could smell that sweet rot on his breath. "Let me ask you something, Doctor. These people I've told you about, the ones who defeated me, do you think they were special? Born different? Chosen by some divine power? I don't know. They weren't. They were ordinary. Broken, flawed, struggling humans who made a choice in a critical moment. That's all. No divine intervention, no supernatural strength, just choice." His voice dropped to a whisper. "Which means you could do the same, if you wanted." My heart hammered against my ribs. "But here's what I've learned, Isaac." He sat back. "For every Donna who chooses mercy, there are thousands who choose revenge. For every Father Antoine who chooses faith, there are millions who choose comfort. For every Cassius who chooses grief, there are endless multitudes who choose power. You're saying most people fail. I'm saying most people are honest. They stop pretending they're better than they are. They acknowledge what they really want. And when they do," he spread his hands, "they're free. Free to do what? Anything, everything. Whatever their nature demands." I thought about my dreams. The ones where I found the driver. The ones Azin knew about. "That's not freedom," I said. "That's chaos." "Is there a difference?" Azin tilted his head. "Your species builds structures, laws, morals, religions to contain chaos. But those structures don't eliminate it. They compress it, build pressure, and eventually that pressure explodes. Wars, genocides, massacres. You create the very horror you're trying to prevent. So your solution is to eliminate the structures?" "My solution is to help you see them for what they are. Chains you've wrapped around yourselves. Chains you call civilization." He leaned forward. "But I'll let you in on a secret, Doctor. The chains aren't what's stopping you from being monsters. You're already monsters. The chains just make you feel guilty about it." My mouth was dry. "That's not true, isn't it? That's not... Let me tell you about someone who understood." Azrin's eyes gleamed. "A man I met at a crossroads in Mississippi. 1936, October, full moon." I felt something shift in the air, a heaviness. His name was Robert Johnson, 25 years old. Couldn't play guitar worth a damn. He'd tried, God knows he'd tried, but his fingers were clumsy, his timing off. Other musicians mocked him, told him to give up, stick to farming. The blues singer, the legend. Azin smiled. He came to that crossroads desperate, broke, seeing his dreams slip away, and I offered him a deal. Not his soul, I've told you, souls aren't currency. I offered him something simpler, acceptance. Of what? Of who he really was. Beneath the shame, beneath the fear of judgment, beneath all the layers of should and ought. Who was Robert Johnson when no one was watching? Azin's voice grew gentle. He was ambitious, hungry, willing to do whatever it took to be remembered, to matter, to make something beautiful even if it meant embracing something dark. And he accepted. He stopped fighting himself, stopped pretending his ambition was sinful, stopped apologizing for wanting greatness. Azin's eyes distant now, remembering. The music that poured out of him after that night, it was transcendent, raw, honest. He played like his guitar was screaming, like every note was pulled from somewhere deeper than technique. He became famous. He became free. For 2 years, he traveled, played, loved, created. No guilt, no hesitation, no chains, just pure, uninhibited expression of his nature. I knew how the story ended, and then the chaos of hell came for him personally. Azin's smile was sad. August 1938, a juke joint in Greenwood, poisoned whiskey from a jealous husband. He died 3 days later, 27 years old. You're telling me that's a success story? I'm telling you he lived more in those 2 years than most humans live in 80. He created art that lasted, changed music forever, touched millions. And when the end came, he didn't resist, didn't beg, just smiled and said, "Worth it." Azin leaned back. That's what I offer, Isaac. Not damnation, not evil, just honesty. The freedom to stop pretending you're anything other than what you are. My hands were shaking again. And what am I? A father who wants revenge. A husband who failed to protect his family. A man drowning in guilt who punishes himself daily because the alternative, accepting that bad things happen randomly, that you had no control, that Eliza's death meant nothing, is too terrifying to face. Tears burned in my eyes. I can free you from that terror, Azin said softly. I can help you accept the randomness, the meaninglessness, the beautiful, terrible truth that nothing you did or didn't do would have changed anything, that you're not responsible, that you can stop carrying that weight. And if I accept, what then? Then you live, truly live. Not this half-existence where you're punishing yourself for breathing while she doesn't. Not this performance of grief where you wear the blue tie and mark the anniversary and pretend you're healing. Actual freedom. His voice dropped to a whisper. I can show you who really killed your daughter. Isaac. I can give you their name, their address, their daily routine. I can tell you when they're most vulnerable. And then, you can choose. Justice or mercy. Revenge or forgiveness. But it would be your choice. Made freely. With full knowledge. The room spun. I gripped the table edge until my knuckles went white. You already know who it was, Azin continued. The driver. 22 years old. College student. He served 6 months in county jail, probation, community service. He's alive right now, doctor. Living his life. Probably doesn't think about Eliza anymore. Probably forgot her name. I closed my eyes. Saw her small coffin being lowered into the ground. You dream about finding him, Azin said. About making him understand. Making him feel it. Making him pay properly. And in those dreams, it feels right. Justified. Like the universe finally balancing its scales. Stop. Why? Because I'm describing something you want? Something you fantasize about? Or because I'm making you confront the truth that mercy isn't your nature? It's just the performance you've learned? I opened my eyes, met his gaze. I know what you're doing, I said, my voice hoarse. You're trying to manipulate me, break me down, make me doubt myself. I'm trying to free you, by taking away my humanity, by showing you that humanity isn't what you think it is. Azin leaned forward. You think you're better than Robert Johnson? Better than Donna before her moment of clarity? You think your civilized veneer makes you fundamentally different from the humans who cheered at public executions, who participated in witch trials, who committed atrocities throughout history. Yes, I whispered. Then you're lying to yourself. His voice was gentle, almost kind. And that lie is the only chain that matters. We sat in silence. The recorder continued running. Somewhere beyond the walls, I heard that screaming again. Distant. Constant. I need to know something, I said finally. Do you hate us? Humanity. Do you hate what we are? Azin considered this seriously. No, I don't hate you. I'm envious. That surprised me. Of what? Of your capacity for change, your potential, your ability to surprise even yourselves. He smiled. Demons are static. We are what we are, have always been, will always be. But humans? You're fluid. Becoming. Every moment is a choice between who you were and who you could be. That's terrifying. And magnificent. Then why try to corrupt us? I'm not corrupting you, Isaac. That implies I'm adding something that wasn't there. I'm just removing the inhibitions, the pretense, showing you what was always present. He spread his hands. If humans were truly good, my whispers would have no power. But they do. Because deep down, beneath all your structures and rules, you're the same creatures who painted caves and hunted in packs. Survival machines wrapped in philosophy. That's bleak. That's honest. I stood up. My legs felt weak. This interview is over. Already? But we were having such a productive conversation. I need time to think. Of course. Azin remained seated. But before you go, tell me, do you believe you're free, Dr. Dern? Do you honestly think the choice to leave this room right now is yours? Or are you following a script written by your psychology degree, your ethical training, your fear of what staying might mean? I walked to the door, hand on the handle, stopped. One more question, I said without turning around. Yes? If you could give humanity one thing, if you could wave your hand and change us, what would it be? Silence, long enough that I almost thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I'd give you the ability to see yourselves clearly, without judgment, without shame. Just see. His voice was soft, sad, almost. Because if you could see what you really are, you'd realize the war between good and evil isn't external. It's not angels versus demons. It's the war inside every human heart between acceptance and denial. And most of you are losing. I left without responding. Laura was waiting, her face etched with concern. Isaac? What happened? You were in there for 40 minutes. Had it been that long? It felt like hours. Or minutes. Time was strange in that room. I need the rest of the day, I said. I'll write my report tomorrow. Isaac, please, Laura, just give me time. She nodded slowly. Okay, but Isaac, whatever he told you in there, whatever he offered, remember that lying is what they do best. I drove home in a daze, sat at my kitchen table, the same table where Eliza used to do homework, where we'd eaten breakfast together, where I'd watched her grow from baby to child to... I couldn't finish that thought. My phone buzzed. A text from Laura. The subject has been quiet since you left. No movement, but he's smiling. I set the phone down, looked at my hands. They were steady now. Perfectly steady. And that terrified me more than anything Azin had said. I found the driver's address in 11 minutes. That's how long it took me, sitting at my laptop at 2 in the morning, coffee gone cold beside me. His name was Tyler Brennan, 24 now. He'd moved to Richmond after his probation ended, worked at a Target, lived in a studio apartment on the east side, had a girlfriend, posted pictures on social media of concerts and brewery visits and normal, forgettable moments of a normal, forgettable life. He'd forgotten Eliza. I could see it in every smile, every casual photo. The accident that destroyed my family was just a bad memory to him now. A mistake. Something he'd paid for and moved past. I stared at his address until the screen blurred. Then I closed the laptop and went to get ready for my third interview with Azin. The corridors of Fort Detrick felt different that Wednesday morning. Longer. The fluorescent lights buzzed with a frequency that made my molars ache. That sweet, rotting smell had intensified, seeping from the ventilation grates like the building itself was beginning to decay. Laura met me at the checkpoint. She looked worse than I did. Dark circles under her eyes, her usually precise hair escaping its bun in wisps. "Something's wrong," she said without preamble. "The priests are refusing to continue their rotation. They say the protective sigils are weakening." "Weakening how?" "They won't explain. Just keep saying the bindings feel different, like something's changing." She gripped her tablet. "Isaac, I don't think we should continue. Not today. Not until we understand what's happening. He hasn't done anything. That's what worries me. 3 days and he's been perfectly compliant. But demons don't cooperate, Isaac. They manipulate." She paused. "What if this whole time he's been building to something?" "One more session," I said. "Let me finish this. Then we can transfer him or terminate the interview series." Laura studied my face. Whatever she saw there made her step back. 30 minutes, and I'm watching every second. The door opened. Azin was standing this time, not sitting. Standing at the far wall, examining the protective symbols etched into the concrete. He didn't turn when I entered. "Fascinating things, sigils," he said conversationally. "Humanity's attempt to weaponize language, turn words into walls." He traced one with his finger. The symbol smoked where he touched it. "But they're degrading. Did you notice?" Laura mentioned it. "Do you know why?" He turned to face me. His eyes were brighter today, more present. "Because they're powered by belief. The priests who maintain them have to genuinely believe these symbols can contain me. And lately," he smiled, "they're having doubts." I set my briefcase down. "Because of what you've been saying to me. Because of what you've been thinking." Azin crossed the room, sat in his usual chair. "Doubt is contagious, Isaac. The priests sense your uncertainty, and it weakens their faith. Their weakened faith weakens the bindings. It's beautiful, really. Circular. You planned this. I planned nothing. I simply spoke truth. What you did with that truth was entirely your choice." He gestured to the empty chair. "Please, sit. We have much to discuss." I remained standing. "I found him. The driver. Tyler Brennan." Azin's expression didn't change. "Did you now?" "You knew I would." "I suspected. Curiosity and rage make excellent motivators." He leaned forward. "Tell me, how did it feel? Seeing his face, his life, his happiness?" My hands clenched. "Like drowning." "And what did you want to do?" I couldn't answer. Couldn't give voice to the thoughts that had kept me awake. "It's all right," Azin said gently. "I already know. You wanted to hurt him. Make him understand. Make him suffer exactly as much as you've suffered. That's not justice. No, it's honesty." He sat back. "You're asking me what demons really want, what our endgame is. Let me tell you." He spread his hands. "We don't want to possess you. Possession is boring, limiting. Why control one body when I can influence thousands? Why force action when suggestion is so much more elegant? Then what do you want?" "We want you to be free." His voice was utterly sincere. "Free from the chains of should and ought. Free from guilt and shame and the constant performance of being good. Free to acknowledge what you are beneath all the pretense. Monsters. No. Human." Azin leaned forward. "Let me tell you what would happen if every human on Earth stopped pretending for just one day. Stopped suppressing their desires. Stopped following rules they don't believe in." His eyes gleamed. "It would be chaos. Beautiful, honest chaos. Not evil, just uninhibited nature. The businessman would take what he wanted. The betrayed wife would seek revenge. The bullied teenager would retaliate. Every suppressed impulse, every denied desire, all of it expressed simultaneously. That's hell. Is it? Or is it Earth as it truly is, without the thin veneer obscuring it? Hell isn't a place, Doctor. It's a state of being. Pure, unrestrained humanity. And we don't need to create it. We just need to remove the illusions preventing you from seeing you already live there. I felt sick. You're describing the end of everything. I'm describing liberation, the end of hypocrisy. Azrin's voice grew passionate. Think about it. Every atrocity in human history, the genocides, the massacres, the wars, they all happened within your civilizations. Your laws didn't prevent them. Your morals didn't stop them. The structures you built to contain chaos became the tools for orchestrating it on unprecedented scales. He stood, began pacing. Let me tell you about others who understood this, who stopped fighting their nature and embraced it. Giovanni Rossi, architect in Florence, 1487. He was designing churches while lusting after his patron's wife and embezzling funds. The guilt was destroying him. I offered him permission to stop feeling guilty, to embrace his desires without shame. The architecture he created after that, Azin smiled. Magnificent. Unrestrained genius. He died wealthy and satisfied. And went to hell? Hell came for him, yes, but he welcomed it. Because he'd spent his life honestly, fully, without regret. Azin continued pacing. Paris, 1889. A woman named Simone Durant, intelligent, ambitious. But society told her women shouldn't desire power. She was suffocating under expectations. I helped her see that society's rules were arbitrary. She stopped apologizing for her nature, became a force in French politics through manipulation, strategy, will, shaped policy that affected millions, died at 83, surrounded by influence and respect, with no guilt at all. Sociopaths. Humans without performance, without the constant internal negotiation between desire and should. He stopped pacing, faced me. And that's what I'm offering you, Isaac. Not damnation. Just freedom from the lie that you're anything other than an animal who learned to speak. I'm more than that. Are you? Prove it. Azrin sat down again. Your daughter is dead. A careless mistake by a boy who's already forgotten her. He's living his life, happy, free, while you torture yourself daily with guilt that serves no purpose. Tears burned in my eyes. You know where he lives now, Azrin continued softly. You could drive there, tonight, tomorrow, make him remember, make him understand what he took from you. And Isaac, it would feel right, justified. And then what? Does Eliza come back? Does the pain stop? No. But you would stop pretending the pain is noble, stop performing grief and actually feel it, raw and honest and real. That's not freedom. That's surrender. To what? Your own nature. Azrin leaned forward. In all your years studying psychology, what have you concluded about human nature? I didn't answer. Humans are capable of extraordinary kindness and horrific cruelty, often by the same person on the same day. Your capacity for empathy is matched by your capacity for violence. You're not good or evil, Isaac. You're contextual, situational, capable of anything depending on circumstances. He spread his hands. So which version is the real you? The grieving father who follows rules? Or the man who fantasizes about making Tyler Brennan suffer? Both are equally genuine. I'm just suggesting you stop pretending one is acceptable and the other isn't. The room felt colder. I loosened my tie. The blue one Eliza liked. You said you don't hate humans, that you're envious. Why? Because you can change, evolve, choose differently. Azrin's expression softened. I am what I am. Fixed, eternal. But you? You're fluid. Every moment is a choice between past patterns and new possibilities. That's terrifying and magnificent. Then why do you want to corrupt it? I don't want to corrupt it. I want to free it. His voice was earnest. Your free will is trapped beneath layers of socialization, conditioning, shame. You're not making free choices. You're following scripts written by parents, culture, trauma. I just want to help you see the scripts so you can choose whether to follow them. And if I choose to follow them anyway? Azrin smiled. Then I respect that choice. Like I respected Cassius, Father Antoine, and Donna. True freedom includes the freedom to choose restraint. We sat in silence. The recorder continued running. "This whole conversation," I said finally. "Have you been manipulating me, lying, or telling truth?" "Both." Azrin's smile widened. "I've been absolutely honest about what I am and what I want. But honesty is the most effective manipulation. Truth without context, facts arranged to guide conclusions. I haven't lied to you once, Isaac. I've just been very selective about which truths to emphasize. To what end? To give you a choice, a genuine one, with full information." He leaned forward. "You can leave this room and continue performing. Follow your scripts. Suppress your rage and call it healing. Pretend Tyler Brennan's happiness doesn't feel like a personal insult to Eliza's memory." His voice dropped. "Or you can stop pretending. Accept that you're not healing. That you don't forgive. That you want revenge, and there's nothing wrong with honest desire. You can be free, Isaac. And if my nature leads to hurting people, then at least it's honest. Better an honest monster than a dishonest saint. At least the monster knows what it is." I stood up. My legs felt weak but functional. "I need to think about this." "Of course." Azrin remained seated. "But Isaac, before you go, let me make one final offer. Stop punishing yourself for Eliza's death. Accept that you had no control. That no amount of guilt or grief will change what happened. Be free of that pain. Not by forgetting her, but by accepting that carrying this weight serves no purpose except to make you feel like you're honoring her." His voice was gentle, kind. "You're not honoring her, Isaac. You're haunting yourself, and I can help you stop." Tears spilled down my cheeks. "And what do you get in return?" "The satisfaction of seeing one more human embrace their nature. Live honestly." He smiled. "That's all I've ever wanted. Honesty. Humans being what they actually are instead of what they pretend to be." I walked to the door, hand on the handle, stopped. "Why me?" I asked without turning. "Why spend this time on me?" "Because you're close, Isaac, balanced on the edge between acceptance and denial. And I'm curious which way you'll fall." I opened the door, and that's when I heard them. The sound started low. So low I felt it in my chest before I heard it with my ears. A rumbling, a growling, something primal and ancient and wrong. "Do you hear that?" Azrin asked calmly. The lights flickered, then died. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. Laura's voice crackled through the intercom, panicked. "Isaac, get out of there. Something's—" The intercom cut to static. The growling grew louder, closer. I could hear scratching now. Claws against concrete, multiple sources, circling. "They've come for me," Azrin said, standing. He didn't sound worried. He sounded satisfied. "Right on schedule." "What is that?" My voice barely worked. "The hounds of hell, beautiful creatures, loyal, persistent." He walked to the center of the room. "I've been here too long, spoke too freely. They're coming to bring me home." The scratching intensified. I could see them now. Not clearly, but shapes in the emergency lighting. Massive, four-legged. Their eyes burned like coals. Smoke or shadow poured off them, obscuring details. They were here and not here simultaneously. One of them stepped fully into the room. Its jaws were wrong. Too many teeth, arranged in spirals. Its breath smelled like burning hair and old meat. It looked at me with intelligence that made my bladder weaken. Then it turned to Azrin and sat, waiting. "Don't be afraid," Azrin said. "They won't harm you. You're not what they came for." The floor beneath him began to darken. Not shadow, something deeper. A void. An absence. Reality tearing open to reveal nothing beneath. "I suppose this is goodbye, Dr. Dern," Azrin said. "Thank you for the conversations. They were enlightening." "Wait," I heard myself say. "Are you being punished? For talking to me?" Azrin laughed. Actually laughed. "Punished? No, Isaac. I'm being recalled. There's a difference. I've served my purpose here. Planted the seeds. Now I go home. More hounds materialized. 6, 10, dozens. All sitting in a circle around Azin, patient and perfect. The void beneath him widened. I could see into it, or tried to. My eyes couldn't focus. My brain couldn't process what it was seeing. Infinity compressed into a hole in the floor. "One last question," Azin said, his feet beginning to sink into the void. "Are you free, Dr. Isaac Dern? Truly free? Or are you following patterns written into you by trauma, culture, biology? Patterns you call choice because the alternative is too terrifying?" I couldn't answer. He smiled. Not cruel, not mocking, understanding. "That's all right. You'll figure it out eventually. And when you do, when you finally choose, whichever way you choose, remember that I was honest with you. Every word." The hounds stood as one, moved toward him. Their mouths opened impossibly wide, revealing throats that went on forever. They bit into the air around Azin, or into him, or into reality itself. The physics were wrong. They dragged him down, not violently, almost gently, like they were guiding him home after a long journey. Azin never stopped smiling, even as the void swallowed him, even as the hounds pulled him into that impossible darkness. He looked at me the entire time, those ancient eyes holding mine, and then he was gone. The void closed. The hounds vanished. The lights flickered back on. I stood alone in an empty room. The smell of rot was gone. The oppressive weight lifted. The door burst open. Laura rushed in, gun drawn, followed by security officers. "Isaac!" She grabbed my shoulders. "What happened? We lost all monitoring for—" "He's gone," I said. My voice sounded distant. "They took him home. You've been standing here for 20 minutes. We've been trying to get the door open. It was sealed from the inside." She looked around. "But there's no one." "I know." Laura studied my face. "What did he say to you?" "He asked if I was free." "And what did you tell him?" I didn't answer. That night, I sat at my kitchen table, the same table where Eliza used to do homework. My laptop sat in front of me. Tyler Brennan's address still saved in my browser. One click. That's all it would take. Drive to Richmond, find him, make him remember, or close the laptop. Let it go. Choose mercy over revenge. Which was the real choice? Which was freedom? I sat there until dawn, staring at the screen. And I realized, with cold, creeping certainty, that I didn't know. Azin had planted his seed exactly as he'd promised. A question I couldn't answer. A doubt I couldn't resolve. The terrible suspicion that everything I'd built my life on was just patterns and conditioning. Was I free? Or was I just following a script because I was too afraid to be anything else? I still don't know. Every day, I choose not to drive to Richmond. Every day, I wonder if that choice is freedom or cowardice. Tyler Brennan still lives there. Still works at Target. Still posts pictures online. And I still have his address. The recorder from our final session sits in my office. Sealed. Classified. I could listen to it again. Try to find the manipulation in his words. But I don't. Because I'm afraid that if I listen carefully enough, I'll realize there was no manipulation at all. Just truth. Uncomfortable, unvarnished, unbearable truth. And I'm not sure I'm free enough to face that. Maybe I never will be. Maybe that was his victory all along. Not corrupting me, not damning me, just making me wonder. Because doubt is the most insidious poison. Once planted, it never quite goes away. It grows in darkness, spreads through cracks, colors every thought, every choice, every moment. Am I choosing mercy, or just too afraid to choose revenge? Am I honoring Eliza's memory, or haunting myself to avoid facing meaninglessness? Am I good, or just a prisoner? I don't know. And that not knowing is the chain I'll carry forever.